If you are watching this episode on YouTube and not listening, then am I wearing this shirt as a hint of our guest this week? Yes, obviously. But anyway, you know that feeling when you realize that the goal that you've been working toward for years might not actually be your goal at all anymore? When the career path that seemed so clear at the beginning feels like someone else's dream that you've just been trying to push through this whole time? Now, I'll be honest, if you haven't figured this out from past episodes already, or if you're new to the show here, well, first, if you're new, hey, hi, I'm Rebecca. But to the point, I clearly have had this feeling before. Namely, when I was coming around to the realization that my heart just wasn't in weddings anymore. After over a decade of building up a, frankly, very successful business. And I'm guessing that I'm not alone in this feeling. I'm assuming many of us have looked around at some point and thought, wait, is this really what I want? Or is this just what I thought I was supposed to do? Is this what felt impressive at one time? So, what happens when the goals change? When you've spent years building towards being a solo artist and realize that actually that's not your primary goal anymore? Or when you've built up a following that could, in fact, support full time work, but that's not actually the life you want? And how do you navigate having multiple creative jobs without feeling like you have somehow failed by not just picking one thing? Today, I am so excited to welcome back Hope Lemanski of Limyansky Studios for another issue of our episode, whatever, our series, Where Are They Now? Where I re-interview people that I've had on the podcast before to see what has stayed the same and what's changed. And a lot has happened in the 2 years since I last talked to Hope. Currently, Hope is balancing 4 different jobs, all in the ceramics world, making and selling her own pottery, creating educational content on social media, and teaching high school ceramics full-time, and co-founding Blue Bucket Tools, a pottery tool company. In this first part of our conversation, we dig into the practical realities of creating content while still genuinely enjoying it, the systems that make it possible to plan a month of social media posts in advance without burning out, and what it actually looks like to launch a business with a partner who complements your skills. We also get honest about the mental shift required to stop comparing yourself to others and start figuring out what you actually want. Not just what you think you should want. And yes, I did say first part, because just like when I interviewed Hope 2 years ago, back on episode 503 and 504, once we get going, it's hard for us to stop. So be sure you've hit subscribe or follow or whatever the button or the plus sign is on whatever app or device you're using to listen or watch, because this episode is up on the YouTube channel now as well. You don't want to miss out on part 2 when it comes out. But anyway, whether you're struggling with the pressure to pick one path, wondering how anyone keeps up with social media without losing their mind, or questioning whether your original career dreams still fit who you are now, Hope's experience offers both permission and practical insight. My favorite combination. So let's dig into this conversation about evolving goals and the freedom that comes from embracing the gray areas, right after this brief word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by The Community, your creative business support system with over 100 makers from around the world, with both the practical education you need to make a living from the things you make, found in our masterclasses on topics like finances, marketing, and SEO, plus the emotional support of fellow makers who truly understand what it's like to try and make a living from the things we make. It's like having both a business school designed specifically for artists and a team of colleagues who actually get what you're going through. But you don't have to take my word for it.
Hi, I'm Alicia Hagan in New Mexico. I joined the community last year after leaving my teaching career to pursue becoming a full-time artist. The community has been so invaluable in my growth as a solo artist because I still feel like I have coworkers and people I can talk to about my struggles and successes. The quarterly master classes always teach me something I didn't know I was even supposed to know. I also absolutely love going to the live co-working sessions and the book club meetups where I can hang out in real time with other makers from all around the world. It is awesome. You can find me and follow my journey on Instagram at Alicia Hagan Art.
Now, on with the show. Welcome to the Maker's Playbook, the show where we talk all about what it's really like to make a living from the things you make. I'm your host, seasoned entrepreneur of 14 years, Rebecca Ikes Cara. I'm not going to say the hello. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to make you just say what you just said before I hit record.
Okay. So a big part of this last year was hitting the realization of, I went to school for ceramics, to have a BFA in ceramics. And what do you do when your primary goal is not to be a solo artist anymore?
God. It was just, but the first time you said that, I was just like, holy crap. Yes. 100%.
You can thank my therapist for this.
Right? We should, each of ours should have their own podcast.
Probably. Yeah.
Content for days.
Mhm.
Dear God, I hope they don't.
No.
But it's such a good question. It's such a good reflection. It's such a heavy question. And it's such a realistic reality. Like there's a million things in that statement. You went to school, you have a BFA. Everybody assumes, oh, you got this thing, therefore you want to do this thing. What happens when doesn't mean you're not going to do the thing. You are still an artist. You are still actively making work. But since this is a Where Are They Now series, we're coming back to a conversation. What happens when the goals change? I guess this is where I loop back in a very fancy production-like way and say, hey, Hope, welcome back to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
I'm so excited. Oh my God. The last time we talked, and I was looking it up and you reminded me it was in 2023. It was a two-parter, and I am sure we are going to be there again. I have no doubt because a lot has happened in 2 years.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And we're friends. So I feel like this naturally is a very easy conversation to have together.
It is. It is. And I feel like it always makes me try to remember to be a host and not overshare, but we'll see. Who knows?
I'm here for it.
We'll let it fly.
As we should.
I know a little bit of what has happened over the 2 years, but also I'm sure there's more that I don't know because keeping up over 2 years keeping up entirely is impossible. So maybe let's hit some high level things first, and then I'm sure there's stuff we're going to come back to and dig in. So on an easy question first, what has stayed the same since we last talked?
That is a good question. I am still working
Nothing.
at the same. Yeah, nothing is the same.
Your Instagram handle.
Yes, Instagram handle has changed and we still have green. So that's the basics. But yeah, I am still making pottery. I am still posting a boatload on Instagram. I am still working at the same school that I was working at. So I am currently in my 8th year there, which is crazy to say out loud. So I'm still doing that. And I still have the fantastic non-potter husband guest appearing from time to time on social media. So,
which, before I forget, I should tell you right now, one of the comments that, as people have heard me say before, our community members find out who I am going to interview before it happens. So you get a chance to submit questions, check it out. And one of the first things that was written from Tim Clark over at Half Blind Potter was that we need more non-potter husband videos. And then there were many comments after that approving of that message.
I agree. I think he is what the online community needs right now, to be entirely honest. His lack of experience, but his confidence towards it is what we need.
I mean, there's so many things I want to say in response to that. Then I'm like, do I want to take this a dark turn that quickly? But yes, what the internet needs is more overly confident white men. Uh-huh. Definitely. We're at
Mhm.
a lack of that, I think, for sure.
Yeah. When you put it that way, he should probably never appear again. But
The best part is when I love them obviously for the humor in general on their own, but then when someone somehow stumbles across your account for the first time via a
okay,
non-Potter husband piece of content and doesn't understand that it's a joke, I'm
okay.
like, oh friend, how do we bring more humor into your life? Because you should not be taking this seriously."
Yes, it does. I don't know. It's weird to read those comments sometimes where you know that they don't know that he is fully leading into this, because believe it or not, he is really, really smart and really good at doing a lot of different things. But he does lean into ceramics being his thing where he's like, I am just going to have fun. I'm just going to be crazy with it. And then I'm going to speak as if this is exactly how it should be done. I find it incredibly enjoyable to film. Like, we love making those videos together. They're one of my favorite things to do, for
I
sure.
love that. I love that so much. We need a mashup of, and I don't remember like the actual account, and I'm sure there's multiple now because they're so popular. Of I've been sent because oftentimes they're Italian food. The person taking a recipe like very seriously, but butchering the entire
And
thing, or like
uh
butchering the pronunciation of mozzarella or something, like somebody
yeah.
like very obvious things that they're just absolutely destroying, and I had never
Okay.
seen them before, and a friend sent me a couple that I was like, "What is happening?" And then you get 30 seconds in and go, "Oh, okay, like this is." It still hurts, but it's
Uh-huh.
on purpose, so okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he took scissors to a piece on the pottery wheel. It hurts to watch sometimes, but it also makes me laugh a lot. And I can always use more of that. So,
I think this brings up a wonderful point that you have told me many times and made me feel so much better and comforted for your own well-being, in that you still genuinely enjoy posting and creating content, and like the fact that the two of you enjoy it together and it's like a source of humor for you
okay.
cannot be emphasized enough for the number of people who ask like, how do you do all of this? How do you keep up? How are you doing? Like I don't think it would be the same if you were saying 2 years later, like, "Actually, this is exhausting."
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say it still can be exhausting. I think now more than ever, I am working with other companies. I have contracts to put out content sometimes, more so than I did 2 years ago. So it can still burn me out. But at the root of it, really, my Instagram is me condensing things that I am already doing in my life into 60 seconds and putting them online. Testing out tools has always been my passion. Making new things has always been my passion. Testing out new techniques has literally been the reason I got into education because I think it's so fun. Goofing off with my husband is what I enjoy doing with my time. So filming them and posting them is still really not that different from the things that I already enjoyed.
And not to go all the way down this rabbit hole so quickly, but since I started, I think what sometimes can get missed that people don't recognize that I know in being your friend is that it is very condensed buckets of time. Like,
Okay.
you are not like, how am I trying to say this? You're not an influencer in the traditional sense, which is a
Mhm.
weird adjective to use for influencer, in the sense that you're not filming every moment of your life. You are not capturing, like, you have plenty of periods of time where you can be present. There are very specific things that people learn or see about you and your life, and there's other things that people don't know, and that's very intentional, and I
Mhm.
have to imagine that's part of the longevity of it. That's part of being able to continue to enjoy it.
Definitely. I think one of the things that I've learned the most in the last 2 years since we've chatted is like, I used to be a very black white person. It either is or it isn't. And I've learned that like I love the gray of things now, which is something that just took a lot of time to get comfortable with. So by that I mean it's like I wear a lot of hats. I do a lot of different jobs. I used to think, well, at some point I need to have one job. You do one thing. And I'm actually like, no, I love that I have so many different things that I do, because you're right. I don't give everything to social media. I don't give everything to teaching. I don't give everything to my other jobs. Like I have different parts of me that I put in different places. And that's been so good for me and so healthy for me to not feel like all of me is wrapped up in one career, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. Since you brought it up, speaking of things that have changed, just how many jobs do you now have since I talked to you 2 years ago?
It was funny. I had to fill out a resume recently for a grant that I was applying for, and I had to list out all the things that I do. And I was like, oh.
Can I get another piece of paper, please?
Yeah, I don't think I realized what I was doing, what I was up to. I kind of title it this way. So I have obviously making my own artwork is one of the jobs that I do. I sell pottery. I also consider producing social media content to be a job because I am earning an income from it now. So that's another job. Obviously, I'm a full-time high school ceramics teacher, so that's another job. And then I am a co-founder of Blue Bucket Tools, which is a pottery tool company that has been around since 2024. So that's job number 4, if your fingers are correct.
Because Hope thought to herself, I have all this free time. I might
Yeah,
as well just start another company,
correct. Yep.
which is just incredible. Incredible and amazing. I mean, it feels slightly possible to me as the person who once had 4 jobs and has tried to back away and then has added and then has like this is going to be a great conversation for me to have with my therapist. Like, is it that bad? Like, is it really? I think it's my happy place. I don't
Yeah,
know. It's either my happy place or my body's addicted to cortisol. Tomato, tomato, really, at this
right.
point. Like,
There are definitely pros and cons to having 4 jobs. There are definitely pros and cons. So we should not look over the cons. This will not be for everyone.
right, right. No, or even forever. I mean, as you said,
Yes,
like things have changed in 2 years. Who knows what you'll be doing 2 years from now?
right. Exactly.
But I would also say I think there's a huge difference between being a co-founder and having somebody else alongside you than if you would have started something completely by yourself, right?
Yes.
And even having team members, but you leading the charge, like just I have to assume that that does help. Not to say
Mhm.
that there's not still a crap ton of work.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it has been fascinating because in a lot of ways, this is kind of the first job I've ever had that is a co-done job. Making my own work is obviously just me. Content, pretty much just me. Teaching in my classroom, I mean, it's just me. So this is really the first time I've ever had like a partner to do things with. And I'm very grateful for the partner that I have. It's Jeff Campana, if you're familiar with his work. He was my former college professor. We have always worked really well together. We have a lot of overlap in our skills, but also a lot of big differences. It has been so good to have someone where even when something comes up and I'm like, oh, I think this is how I want to handle this, but I'm not sure, give him a call and we can brainstorm. I've never been able to brainstorm with someone about what to do next professionally. And I should take that back a little bit. I do brainstorm with my husband as much as he can understand about my jobs. you
He's a
know,
sounding board, not a brainstorming partner.
That's a good way to say it, yes.
Yeah.
Whereas, Jeff understands the ceramics world in a very similar, but also different lens than I do. So it's been really cool to have a partner for the first time in a business adventure.
So how have you guys like split up? Because the fascinating part to me is like I'm seeing what you're posting on social media, obviously, and I'm seeing you doing a lot of shipping and packaging out there. And I was like, you didn't exactly take the like low lift side
Mm,
of the business. And
yeah.
I'm assuming most of the social strategy is also social and content strategy is
Yes.
you.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think it's just me because Jeff does not like to be on camera. He does not like to do those kinds of things. Obviously, we know I'm much more comfortable with that.
A
So,
potter who doesn't want to be on social media? No, I'm sorry. I've never.
oh,
Nope.
no,
That's
we've never seen
so
that.
unusual.
Never. Very bizarre.
The number of
um,
people who have like actually seen Francesco can be counted on, I don't know, a couple hands probably.
Yeah. a potter and a marketer being the same thing it's an odd combo I've discovered.
Reasons
Um,
we're such good friends.
right. Exactly. Yes. So the whole Blue Bucket Tools brand kind of started because I went back to Kennesaw State University for their Throw-a-thon event. We always do an empty bowls there, and I love to go and make a bunch of pots and hang out with all my old friends, and it's always a good time. We were throwing on these tile bat systems because they are like super inexpensive and you can make a lot of them. And when you're doing a throw-a-thon, you need a lot of throwing surfaces. So we were talking about them, and Jeff's like, I started making these when I was an undergrad, and I won't out him with what year that was. But he was like, I was doing these when I was an undergrad. And, I think they could be so great, but like, I don't do marketing. I don't do advertising. Like, I don't know how to do any of that. And I was like, hey, that's like exactly what I know how to do. And I also am super into the tool world. I love testing out new things. And that just kind of sparked it. So that is still true to kind of how the company functions. So he does a lot of product design and development. And then usually he'll bring things to me and I'll say, okay, I test run it. Here's what I think about it. Here's the things we could tweak. He actually knows how to make all the tweaks. I'm not familiar with that kind of software. And then when it comes to actually like launching the product, I do all the videography, the photography, that kind of stuff. And also a lot of customer education. I think a lot of our tools, we really try to give customers, a very solid understanding of the product before they buy it. So I also put together a lot of that type of stuff.
Which I have to imagine putting so much effort into that front end of things helps mitigate how much communication, email, customer service, for lack of a better phrase. I know it's more than that, but that back and forth that I think is a lot of times people's fear of launching something, because it's
Okay.
like, oh God, what if something arrives broken? I'm just going to go through the questions that just mailing pots. What if something arrives broken? What if somebody wants a refund? All of those things are the scary questions to have to answer later on. But if you're doing a lot of front end communication and education, it's not to say that there's not nothing, but I imagine it's a much more manageable amount of
Oh, for sure.
communication.
Yeah. And I've always said in my own tool reviews of other brands, this isn't for me, but maybe it's for you. And I think that's going to be true with our own tools. So my goal going into it was I want to make sure that you can decipher that without even having to send us without having to buy anything. So we try to be really candid about the pros and cons of everything that we do so that you can decide that early.
Well, and it completely made sense to me in the sense that when you were first describing it, and I live with a purist, the only time bats are used are when it's a form that you cannot lift off with your hands. Like, and the only time bats are used are also when it's a bat that's absorbent, because in his description, that is the entire point of a bat. But to your point, you designed this for teachers. When it launched, it was like, oh, this makes sense, because you were talking about like the mass quantity of usage over and over and over again, which is just a
Okay.
completely different use case than what, the solo production potter living in my basement thinks. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, but it's true though. Like I'll have a student that I'll see on Thursday and I may not have them as a student again until Monday. We can't have them on an absorbent bat because they're not going to be able to trim the piece afterwards. The bat's going to be warped, and it's so hard to fix a warped masonite bat if you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was built around that demographic. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to be like, whoa, that is so not what I want in a bat. And that's okay. We just want to be able to tell you that right away so that we don't make you feel like you have to like try it yourself and then come to the realization.
Yeah, totally. That's amazing. I'm going to go to the community questions first and foremost as I get my brain wrapped around here, because
Cool.
I know, everybody thinks of you for social media. Obviously, you are also a full human outside of social media. So we're not only going to talk about that, but we might as well just nip it in the bud from the beginning.
Okay. Fair. Good point.
Um, because the big questions that popped up right away are definitely, some are very tactical, and I think we could probably just like tick these off. We talked about them a little bit, so we can send everybody back to the original interview. I looked it up, so I have the numbers ahead of time. Episode 503 and 504 for anybody who wants to wipe the mud off their fingers and go back and scroll through. But there are still the big questions of how in the world you make as much content as you do in terms of how you make such great reels, if you have resources that you use. I don't know if resources are in terms of like apps and editing tools
Uh,
and stuff like that. Maybe, maybe not. Take it how you want. But also like how you make decisions on content in terms of the tools you review, the techniques that you try.
mhm.
There's so much. There's both of those hand in hand. Take it
Okay,
as you like.
cool. So I would definitely say I do less content now than I did 2 years ago, but only like one less video a week. So we're not talking like everything's in the world has changed. I still am producing a lot. Usually 5 days a week is when I'm posting a reel, typically, sometimes more, sometimes less, but usually 5 days a week. I am super structured. I think it's one of the reasons that I thrive as a teacher. I love planning. It like scratches a thing in my brain to have highlighters and color code and get it all mapped out. So like I usually plan out the whole month's content at the start of the month, if not a whole month prior to that, which is really a way that I have learned to like stay on track with whatever my content goals are. Because if I have them written out, if I know what's coming up, then when I enter the studio, it's like, okay, well, all my pots that I threw are leather hard. Okay, what trimming stuff do I have coming up? Well, we'll pre-film all that because I already have it mapped out. So those kinds of things are very helpful. I also keep an ongoing list in my notes app of just ideas. So anytime something pops into my head, I'll be like, oh, that'd be a cool video. Oh, this would be a cool video. You know, a student will say something. I'm like, oh yeah, I could do a video on that. So that gets updated all the time too. So if I have like a dead day where I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, you just go to the list and you're not even having to sit there and be like, okay, I need to fill the day. It's like, oh no, here's all the things I've wanted to do. Now I finally have a day to slot it in. That's a very different approach to have to creating content, I think.
I agree with you. I also my finger went up for anybody not watching because it was a very quick statement, but I think I want to hit it again for anybody. You having classrooms of students asking questions should not go unrecognized. Because as you said at the very beginning of us hitting record, you're basically taking what you're doing on a day-to-day basis in school and adjusting the way it's presented for social media. And so like in terms of coming up with ideas and deciding ideas, you can see right there, not that your Instagram audience is exactly, you probably have some high school students, but you don't have an overwhelming number of high school students, perhaps. There's plenty of adults, but it's still people learning ceramics. So there is
Mhm.
a crossover. And so those questions are going to be similar whether you're 16 or 61.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that my students they ask me so many questions all of the time. And I'm already answering them in person. I might as well answer them in the form of content. So there's a lot of overlap there. But it also is, I've loved teaching so much because, there's always things that when you do something for long enough, you just assume everyone knows how to do it. And I'm so fortunate to have students in a space that feel like they can ask any and all questions. So they'll ask me things where I'm like, whoa, I never even thought about adding that part to a demo because in my head, I'm programmed to do it. I know how to do it. We bypass a lot of things. And I love when my students ask questions that are like that, where I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. We could slow down and talk about this specific part more. Never crossed my mind because you already feel like you know things.
100%. 100%. I remember before, as I was launching the styling course, like I was so worried about making sure it provided value, right? Like making sure it was not only providing value, let's be honest, I had imposter syndrome. Like,
Okay.
sure, the first time we did the course was late 21. So I had been a full-time photographer for 11 years at that point. So like I knew that I knew what I was doing, but I was worried that people weren't going to know that I knew what I was doing. And
Okay.
I wanted to make sure the cost of the course, like showed its value, like people got more than what they paid for, right?
Yes.
I am always an over deliverer, and that's okay. That's my happy space. But
This is
as
why
soon
we're
as
similar.
as soon as people started taking it, the like greatest aha moments came from the smallest things or like the most common questions. I wound up creating like a bonus video that was talking about aspect ratios because aspect, right? Even probably just using that term sounds jargony to some people. And it's basically just the different sizes of image. Like, why is the size of an image you take on your phone different than the size of the image you need for a carousel, different than the size that you need for a story, different than a reel? And that's just Instagram.
Yep.
Not to
Yep.
mention Etsy or your website or an email newsletter or whatever. And I just didn't even, it didn't cross my mind that that was such a big pain point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, to your point, it was like, oh, yeah, you're right. You forget what you just like glance over because you're in it so frequently. That's
Yeah.
100%. Keep going. I'm also going to put on chapstick because
Okay.
it's December and I live in the Midwest.
Yeah. Meanwhile, here it's like 70 today or something. It's insane.
It's cool for you. And you're in a sweatshirt.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, I really need to come visit. Why do I live here?
Yeah, you should come visit. You're always welcome. So,
We have a
okay.
long list of Atlanta people we need to come see. So we've got to make this happen.
I'm game. Then
Mhm.
you can come take a mug from my mug wall and I can judge which one you pick.
No pressure.
I love having guests over that don't do pottery. And I'm like, yeah, which cup do you want to use? And like watching them figure it out is so fun.
Can I also make an equivalent comparison for the things that you are known for?
Uh-huh.
Your mug, making a decision on your mug wall to me is equivalent to when the rare occasion I walk into a nail salon and I have to
Mhm.
decide on a color
Mhm.
and realizing I need to arrive like 10 minutes earlier than when I
Mhm.
need to be there because that's how long it's going to take me to make the decision.
Yep.
Not because I'm comparing like red to blue, because I'm comparing 5 reds that
Yeah, oh, yeah.
someone who does not have perfect color vision would look at and be like, those are all the same, Rebecca, move on.
Yep.
Mhm.
This is
So
why I'm shocked that potters don't like nail polish more. Because I'm like, y'all, there is so much dimension to nail polish. Like,
I have moved past my level of disappointment. And like, I don't need that disappointment in my life, knowing myself well enough that no matter how long I sit and wait for it to dry, I will still mess it up. So
yeah.
I've just moved on.
It's okay. But I'm here for you if you want to move back. So,
I think a decade and a half in the events world where I had to always be put together,
that'll
regardless
do
of
it.
wanting to be, was just like, you know what? There was nothing more exciting to me than entering into the pottery world of being like, oh, if I have too much makeup, like if I have makeup on, people look at me funny,
Uh-huh.
and that's really fun. Like,
So,
I love my first in Sika, walking down the hallway and seeing people in like full on, full hair and makeup, like iconic outfits, like living their best life, walking next to someone who clearly literally just came out of the studio. And
yes.
I don't mean someone who just gave a demo and so therefore they got muddy on stage because they were presenting. I mean
Okay.
someone who was just attending and showed up in their studio clothes that they had not washed. Yep. And I love that for us. I love that for us
I
so
do
much.
too. Because everyone can go there and feel like they're having a fun time. Like, no one's out of place. You can't be out of place there.
You can feel like you're going to be. And I
Yes.
hope you listen to this and we should just like splice this as Nsika approaches so people know
That's
we promise you are not.
yeah.
Yeah. Because it can be overwhelming, but that's a
Oh,
different.
it is.
We should
We
get to
can
that.
do a whole nother.
I should like already be preparing a whole like Nsika preparation. You probably already have this scheduled out, don't you? You're ready.
I don't know. This year NC is going to be insane for me. So I'm not sure how much of that will make it into content or not. Because, like,
Oh, I
the
mean,
girl's
you're like
busy.
pre-Nsika prep.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like how
Yeah.
to attend if you're attending,
Mhm.
tips and like you
Yeah.
got it. You got it
Yeah.
on lock.
I have those.
Goals. I think what people underestimate, I think people are going to hear this and think we sound nuts, but I think what they underestimate is the amount of mental freedom that comes with already knowing what you need to do.
That. Yep.
Because I was
Like,
just working on like a year calendar for our community, and like the
Mhm.
idea that I could have things prepared in advance gives me so much relaxation. And when I'm in a place, when I feel behind and I'm in a place of like, I have to do something this week for this week, I get really anxious. I get really nervous and stressed. And also, I feel like, well, if I can't do it completely, I just shouldn't do it. Like, I just,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably how people feel about social media a lot of the times, of like, if you're always a little behind the 8 ball. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. And I think too, it helps me because it's like a to-do list. If I'm like getting overwhelmed, I'm like, well, no, I have tomorrow's list set aside for tomorrow. Today's list is this. That's it. Once we do that, we're good. Everything else has been slotted into another day. So it helps me to not get that panic too of like, oh, I'm overwhelmed because nope, we got dates for it all. Not a today job.
I love that. I love that so much. Janet's asking, what resources do you use? And I was inferring that that would be about editing or apps.
Okay.
But if there's other things that would fall in the realm of resources, then take it how you see fit.
Okay. Yeah. I think people think I edit a lot more than I do, or that editing is a bigger chunk of my time than it is, but it's actually not. I keep things pretty cut and dry. The bulk of my editing now gets done in Instagram. Gosh, what's it called?
Oh,
Edits?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's called edits.
They did a good job on that branding.
Yeah, they really did. There was a learning curve in the beginning because anything that's not what you're used to is going to feel weird. But I actually really love it because what I can do now is I'll take my whole clip of, 5 minutes of whatever, drop it in there. They got a really great tool to splice everything. So I can, go through the video. I want this 2 seconds, cut, move on. Okay, I want to start the next one here, cut it, delete the previous one. It will take adjustments, as does any new thing that you're learning. But once you learn it, it's pretty great.
Is there a desktop version of it, or is it just phone?
I don't know. I do everything on an iPad. Like the iPad has been the biggest investment in the most positive way for me because everything's bigger. Like I just need everything bigger. Yeah. I do everything on the iPad now.
I cannot stress how much I do everything on a desktop. Almost everything. No, everything, unless I'm somewhere that's not in my home and I like need to pull something up. Because I am so much faster with 10 fingers than I will ever be with 2 thumbs. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's so much easier to take a photo on my phone and then it's already on my phone to upload it to social media." And I am like, I will always be slower trying to like slide something if you have to edit, trying to adjust something
Mhm.
than keyboard shortcuts and 10 fingers.
See, and I like the iPad because I have that keyboard attachment to it. So I do all my typing for captions on the iPad as well because I am a much faster typer with all fingers than I am with two. And then the nice thing is because it's all in the same system, everything syncs with my phone. So then when I am out and about and I want to do a quick something, I still have access to all of it, all the photos sync and all that jazz. So that's been a good solution for me personally.
I love that because also, I mean, the thing I've been testing out is like I've taken Instagram off my phone. I still have Instagram, but I
Mhm.
only am doing it on the computer. And I think even just the idea of if you're in the habit of editing on the iPad, like, yes, you can do it on your phone, but if the habit is that, it probably helps remove like work time from lifetime because lifetime, not like the show.
Actually, I have a new
Um,
Lifetime show. No, I'm kidding.
Listen, I could absolutely see you having to go home to your small town and
So
you're like we could write the story very
we
easily.
could.
You're
Yeah.
opening up a pottery studio in
Okay.
your grandpa's hometown
Yeah.
where you've inherited some falling apart barn. I'm not sure how we're
Mhm.
going to work in non-potter husband because
He's
obviously
he's the big business boy that comes back to the small town. Have you seen Hallmark? That
well,
is
see, I was thinking
every
you were the business in here. You were the business person coming back to the
Oh,
small
that's very
town.
girl boss of you. Thanks.
Well, did you not just hear yourself? You have 4 jobs, of
I
which you are
know.
in charge. Mine,
That
like,
is
you're not in
true.
charge of the school, but, you're in charge of the classroom.
Yeah,
Um,
there.
let's give some credit where credit's due with all due respect to non-Potter husband. And to my knowledge, he's not part of a member of a royal family. So, it was hard to slate him in. But there
We're
does
still
have to be
hoping,
like a
but
love triangle. We're waiting out for that uncle to show up.
yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh, I've completely digressed. My point was having a different device makes it helpful for that separation where like
Uh-huh.
the world in which we live, where we're always connected and always on, like we're not going to necessarily get rid of our phones anytime soon, but being able to like remove some of that from what's always with us, just at least for me, helps that mental shift of like, I can't check, it's not there. I'm not going to check it because I can't check it.
Yep.
So,
I
yeah.
totally agree. I think the more you can do, if you're going to pursue social media, the more you can do to make it feel like and I hate to say real job because that's such a like, I don't want to downplay what anyone is doing at any point. So I hope I'm not coming across that way. But like the more you can do to make it feel like a place that you are clocking into and clocking out of, I think the better it is for you as a person. And I say that just because that's how it's gone for me. When I had access to it 24/7, it's hard to not want to do it 24/7.
I mean, they put trillions of dollars into it to make you want to do it 24/7.
Right. Exactly.
There are now studies coming out, and it's scary.
It's hard to not fall into that.
I didn't think that I had a this sounds so bad. I was gonna say I didn't think I had a problem. Like, "Hello, my name's Rebecca," and, not to make light of that, that's a very real thing. I didn't think I was in a bad mental place as far as, like, comparison monster or imposter syndrome or, like, all the things we associate with it because there is such great community. Like, we are friends because of social media. We have now met in person, but we
Uh-huh.
basically stay in touch through social media. And so many people have that as a reality. Like, I imagine there's many people, especially potters. There's many people I've met in the past 5 years whose phone numbers I don't have, but who
Uh-huh.
I DM frequently on Instagram, right? And so like thinking of removing that and then not having that connection is that's a meaning those are meaningful connections.
Uh-huh.
That being said, like, now having given myself this parameter of desktop only, like, I can still keep in touch with those people, but I do notice, like, the decisions I'm making for the Maker's Playbook, for the community, all of these other things are without a secondary voice as much. I mean, it's still there a little bit, but as much behind me of, like, seeing so and so do this on social, so now I should do this, or keeping up with, "Oh, shoot, they did that already and now I'm behind," or like, that's getting quieter.
Uh-huh.
So,
And I'm proud of you for that because I struggle with that as well. Like, it's so hard to not play the comparison game. I still do it all the time, but I have now, and this has just happened in the last 2 years. I certainly could not have said this in our 2023 interview, but like, I see people who are doing the influencer thing full time. I see people who are being potters full time. And I am so happy for them that they have chosen that. And I am also so aware that that's not the right fit for me. It took me a long time to get to that place because it's so hard to look and not either feel like envy, like, oh, I wish I was doing what they're doing. How did they make it happen? And, I had to grow a lot myself to figure out, but what do I need to do for myself and realize that there's not one answer. Everyone's so different. So when I see people doing other things, I am genuinely happy that they're doing what they want to do, whether or not that aligns with my own personal goals.
100%. And I think people are gonna be really shocked to hear you say the goal is not full-time social media.
Yeah.
For outsiders looking in, yeah,
Mhm.
that's what your account looks like, right? In terms of the numbers, in terms of the content, in terms of the partnerships. What else would that be?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely strange. I think that I had to realize like social media is a tool to create more connections, but it's not a place where I necessarily feel connected, as weird as that sounds. Like you had just said a second ago, you and I would probably have never actually become friends if it weren't for social media giving us a place to get together. So I realize that, but when I log on and I scroll for 10 minutes, that's not connecting. It's because you and I have used a platform to choose to interact with one another. That's a connection. Doom scrolling is not connecting. That really changes things when you look at social media in that lens. At least for myself, it did. Because when you think of it as, well, if that was my workplace, that's not actually a place that I want to work in personally. I need more than that, you know? I need my students to come after school and talk to me about random things. We had an hour-long debrief about types of waffles, and, like, that is it sounds so silly.
I'm gonna have
That's
follow-up
connections.
questions.
You should. I'm here for it. I have a lot to say about waffles, so
As do I, as do I. Wasn't aware there were that many types, actually. My types are very rooted in, like, family recipes, but
Mhm.
this is a follow-up conversation. This is
Yes,
not a podcast conversation.
there.
Unless people want to know about waffles, then, DM us, let us know.
We'll do a
We'll
waffle
we'll
episode.
yeah, why not? I'm
Yep.
sure somebody's making ceramic waffles in the world, so we could tie this into ceramics somehow. I'm sure it exists.
Gotta eat on a
Like,
plate, so
well, there's people making Cheetos or not Cheetos, Cheez-Its. Like,
okay.
there's plenty of options. I was thinking very literally, but you're right. We could that's a whole see, I just got another business idea. Like, you could do a whole video hmm. I was gonna say video-oriented podcast of functional wear and using it and enjoying your favorite
Mhm,
meal while talking about the meal and what you're eating it
mhm,
on.
mhm.
But then I just realized the serious problem with this is you would have to hear people eating, of which is my greatest pet peeve on the planet. So somebody else can run with this idea. Feel
Love
free to
it.
take it. I digress. I think that is a fabulous distinction. I think it's something that gets lost in the fear of stepping away from social. I think it's the book Digital Minimalism, and maybe Cal Newport wrote that. Maybe he didn't. I could be wrong. It's definitely called Digital Minimalism, that poses the question of, like, any tool out there, talking about social media as a tool, any tool out there has a benefit, right? Like, of course it has a benefit. That's why it exists. But then the question is, like, do the benefits outweigh the effects? Effects isn't the opposite of benefits, but my brain is not remembering what the exact what is the word?
Like, the benefits and the drawbacks? No.
Drawbacks, I guess?
Pros and cons.
Yes. I mean, all of these things are accurate. I just can't think of
There's
the
a right one.
not detriment, but there is an
Google.
exact we'll get there. Anyways, the point is, like, a lot of people, you know, keep all of these apps on their phone that they say they want to use less because it's like, oh, but I get this from it. But is the this you're getting, that 1% of connection that we have been able to experience because of social media, like, does that outweigh the 2.5 hours of doom scrolling that you thought was going to be 10 minutes? Right? How do we bring that scale back into balance? The other piece that makes so much sense for me in terms of for you shifting, not being full time with social media, is the thing that's always been disconcerting for me is you have no control over the platform you're building your business on. And maybe it's just my desire for control and why I've always been self employed that, like, that's the whole point for me. So, like, to have to stick up to keep up with trends or to make adjustments based upon what this other, company that may or may not even know that you exist is making
Mhm.
decisions on, like, that's scary.
It is totally scary, and I had to come to a place too where I was like, if Instagram went goodbye tomorrow, for whatever reason, who knows why, no longer exists, I still wanna be employed, you know? That's part of it. I also, social media trends change. We know this. It's popular now. That could last another year. That could last 6 months. We don't really know. I think it's really scary to choose to put all of your eggs in one basket, really, when that basket is social media. And like you said, you don't really get to choose if the platforms sticking around or not.
Mhm. I do think this is a very different business model, and I just want to be super clear about it for people of, like, what you have built online in terms of educating and being a quote again, influencer doesn't feel right for you, but I don't have another
I just put
word.
it on my resume, so that's fine.
Great, cool. And we can talk about, like, because you do have partnerships, because you are creating content for other companies, so, like, that's why I put it within that category. But, like, that is completely different than the way I approach social media, which is using it as it's not my business model. Like when you're an influencer, when you're looking for brand partnerships or, collaborations and being paid for content and stuff like that, that's where I put it into maybe not even being paid for content, but also getting an exchange of, there's people out there who are influencers in the sense of like they're getting product in exchange for content. That's maybe not buying groceries, but it's still a different thing
Mhm.
than what I think about for social media, which is the top of a funnel of a marketing effort. And that is not the same approach by any stretch of the imagination, which should be very clear to people just purely in how frequently I post versus how frequently you post.
One of us has a problem, okay? But
You don't? You've just said that you're
yeah,
still happy about it,
I am so happy about
but,
it, though. I've changed my habits. We're doing a lot better. But no, I think it's a really good point that social media can look so different for so many people. There are a billion different ways to use it. I've seen a lot of discourse recently online in social media about like this attitude of like we get to use social media now as a marketing tool versus like we have to use social media as a marketing tool. And I really like that shift in lens. And it is just one word, but it really changes a lot of things to me because I think it's true. We get to use social media now. I get to show people how a pot is made in a way that you could not do 10 years ago even. Like it's so different.
not even 10. Like,
It's
that's
yeah.
the crazy part about
Right.
this.
Right.
Like, 10 years ago, Instagram was the version that was people putting on the filter, like, oh, I forgot the names. I used to remember the names, like the Paris filter or
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything was a square with a fake film edge to it or whatever it was. Like,
Mhm.
it was, I think we forget how fast this has accelerated. When I started my first photography business, the only thing that existed was Facebook within just my experience. This is not even like looking back over 30 or 40 years or something like this. This
Right.
is like a 15-year review. That is insane.
Yeah. It's growing and changing so fast. And there's pros and cons to that, of course. But yeah, there are just so many different ways to do social media.
And I think it's something that if it's the right fit for the goals, and this is, everybody's heard me say this a million times. I can hear the eye rolls. But it's like if what I'm also hearing from you though is like when you pause to get clear of what your goals are actually and what you actually want your life and your day to day to look like, then you can do the backwards math of like, okay, so what does that mean for
So,
social media? How does social media fit into this? Does it fit into this? Does it need to? Does it have to?
yep.
Like, and then you can backwards into this because just like there's a million ways to use social media, there's also a million ways to build a business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And
Like,
I think I had to get all of my jobs to a place where I could do 81 of them full time. And that's what I did really in 2023. I got everything to the cusp where I could see myself going in any direction. And I think I had the groundwork laid to be what, my own version of success in any of the fields to then say, okay, but now I need to choose what I want to do. Like
mm,
before, it was always a dream. Like, I would like to do this. This sounds cool. Okay, you can. What do you want to do? And that everything changed when I got to sit back and say, well, what do I want? you know?
that's so interesting. I'm literally leaning back and then I'm remembering I have to lean into the microphone. Um, but I want
Mhm.
to lean back and
Yeah.
sit with that, like physically sit with that. What do you think it was about needing to take everything to that cusp of full time?
Going back to that first statement that we did our cold open with, you know, you get a BFA and everybody's like, your goal is to be an artist. So you feel that. I felt that. And granted, a lot of that is probably just my own internal things. I was putting that onto myself. But in my lens, I felt like that is what everybody else was thinking. You do these things. This is the dream. And dream and reality are different. I needed to get the dreams to a place where they could be reality to decide, or is that actually what my dream is? Or is that just the dream that like I'm told should be my dream? And, I hope as well that all of this is, coming across as like, I'm still making art. I'm still doing that. I've chosen to have 4 jobs instead of 1. That's like the gist of this. And with that, though, I felt like people would see 4 jobs as, well, because you couldn't make it with 1, you know?
Mm.
And I had to realize, no, I can make it with 1. I can make it with any of the 4 as the 1, but I liked 4. Like, it's just who I am. It's just what I like to do. But I was so worried about that and what other people would think. And so I had to get to a place where I could do it. I knew I could take 4 to 1. I don't want to,
Mhm.
and that's a choice.
It's also super secure, to be honest. I mean, I'm glad that the reason you're doing it is coming from a like choice for yourself and not a necessity. And I'm a little bit scared of saying this because I think people are going to hear it as I should have multiple streams of income because there's plenty of things on the internet telling people that they should. And I need everybody to take a beat with that. We can talk more about that in a second.
Yeah, fair.
Of like, you didn't build all 4 of these things at the same time because trying to do that is a very different reality as opposed to like having some years of teaching under your belt, that
Okay.
feeling really smooth and you had it dialed in and then we added
Yep.
and progressing in that nature. Apparently I didn't table that. I did just keep going. But realistically speaking, because you added these gradually and in a way that was manageable for yourself and in a way that was, systematized and repeatable in a way that kept yourself sane, it is really strategic also because like we're saying, social media is a very volatile place. If you had 2 years ago, I felt like the underlying tone was that the goal was ultimately to go full time with it and leave the classroom, which you can do now if you wanted to. But, you know, healthcare.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to get down to like just the essentials here, yeah, being self employed has a lot of other jobs. Like, I think people think self employed is like, then I just make pots all day. And I'm not going to say everyone thinks that because I do know a lot of us are like, well, we know that that's not true.
If they've
You know,
listened to more than 2 episodes, they should know
literally
by
what your
now.
podcast is founded on. But you do, again, that dream stage, you feel like that's maybe all I would do. Oh my gosh, there is so more that goes into running a company and being self employed and all of that. And like maybe you have a partner whose insurance you can get on, but maybe you don't. And then what does that look like? There's a lot that goes into it.
Just filing payroll alone is like such a pain in the butt to me. And we do it once a month instead of biweekly like normal jobs so that I don't have to do it as much.
Right.
But it's just one of those annoying I was going to say nuances, but what I meant was nuisances. Nuisances of just like, this isn't why I got into this,
Right. Right.
And like, sure, you can outsource some stuff, but then that's an added cost, which then means you have to earn more money to cover those costs. And like, I've been down that road. Like, and then you've got overhead and then you're going crazy just to cover that overhead.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely I'm one of those people, I try to stay in my own experience lane. So I'll say if you want to hear more about the struggles, and the struggles isn't the right word, like the learning curves that are involved in doing that full time, I think you should go listen to the Maker's Playbook episode with Not Work Related. She is so good at really articulating all of the pros and cons of doing it full time. I would tell everybody if I could recommend one episode to go listen to, and she may have done 2 parts. I can't remember. 2. Oh, look at me.
Sarah and I
got
had
it.
a few things to talk about. Shocker.
I love her.
Especially because she's doing it in New York City as well, which is a
Yeah.
whole different alternate universe
Yeah.
of reality, especially for potters.
Mhm.
100%.
She's good. She keeps it real and authentic, and she's such a role model for me. I am so inspired by her. She's great.
Also, buckle up, people, because when you just said she keeps it real, like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Don't
love
listen
it.
to that one with your kids.
No.
Oh, my gosh. I want to go back to something you said earlier because I think it was really powerful, and at least it hit home for me, especially in that, like, people seeing you do 4 things makes it think that you have to do 4 things, like, in order to quote unquote succeed or nothing is fully working. I love that you pointed out, like, if you wanted to, you could turn any one of them up to 120% and get rid of the other ones. And that just hit home for me really hard. Maybe it's because I needed to hear the assurance of it. I don't know. I'm selfishly reflecting now. I didn't leave photography or weddings because it wasn't successful. This was not a financial decision whatsoever. In fact, it was the opposite. Like, the financial decision would have been to stay in events and weddings. Like, that was, I don't want to say it was easy because it wasn't, but after you do anything for 14 years, you should have a certain amount of flow in it. And we were very successful, but my heart wasn't in it anymore. And so, like, that's the funny thing about watching people online is, like, understanding why they're doing a thing is so difficult to see. And I don't entirely know why I'm bringing all of this up. Maybe also just to mention that the perception that there's, like, I don't know, it's so much easier to make money teaching or to teach online or whatever, like, just to dissuade, like,
Right.
not actually easier.
Facts.
Like, so neat. Let's just say the styling course is $300 and I charged a little bit more than that for a wedding. Just a
Yeah.
smidge, a scotch, if you will. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I
get
don't know
it.
where I'm going with it.
No, I feel like I this choice of doing so many jobs has definitely taught me that, like, I don't compare them. Like, one's not easier than the other in a way. Like, all of my jobs have pros and cons. Everybody's job does. Having 4 jobs has pros and cons, but each of those 4 separate things has their own things to it. I've learned with the way that I like to kind of ebb and flow through projects. Like, I like having 4 because when one of them is like, "Oh, that one's getting really hard," I can flow into another one, work really hard on that for a little bit. And usually, because my 4 jobs are actually quite intertwined, like, they're all still in the same field, sometimes the experiences that I have with one of them will then help me flow back into the other and feel suddenly re-energized, and I'll have an answer to a question that I didn't know I had an answer to. So they work together really well, which I think is part of the reason why having 4 has really helped me in a lot of
Mm.
ways.
That's a really interesting reflection because it sounds like, the adage everybody gives in terms of when you're trying to figure something out or you're stuck, like, we all get our best ideas in the shower or walking the dog, or, like, who was the poet that would, like, go for a long walk in the woods or whatever. You can describe it in whatever romantic way you want to, but you're essentially using that psychological reality to your advantage because it applies from one thing to the next. I mean, I still
Mhm.
hope you do go for a long walk for the woods. You do have a dog, so I assume there are demands that need to be met. But
There are, yes. Yeah, but they
yeah,
really no, you're right. It's been an interesting thing to see how much they work together, really.
yeah, it makes so much more sense to me as soon as you say it. Is like it's not. It's almost like you kind of have one job, and that is ceramics. And within that job, you've divvied up the job of ceramics into, like, not that they're ever equally 25% all of the time, but you've divvied it up into a pie,
Okay.
which is sometimes teaching in person, teaching online, sometimes, selling a product effectively. And whether that be your own product, whether that be Blue Bucket Tools, whether that be somebody else's product that you've been contracted for to talk about. Like, yeah, as soon as I start to describe these in this way, the Venn diagram it becomes a pie chart instead of a Venn diagram.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
no,
way less worried about your mental well-being now.
it took me a lot of therapy to realize that I fear the Venn diagram is just a circle. Like, you know? Uh, yeah, because everything is they all work together and they're all me. But then there's also these other parts of me that are not in the circle. And that's okay too, you know? But my ceramic circle does hold all of my careers for sure.
I mean, I also think it's wise and healthy that your career circle is its own circle, and then there are life circles separate.
There should be. I recommend that everybody have color coordinated circles.
Of course, they would be color coordinated.
Acidity.
I mean, really what we should talk about is the amount of time spent planning, designing, and organizing displays, because that's just a thing of beauty. And I can see a world where a Venn diagram happens. Like, I know what the fifth job is going to be. I'm just going to say that now. I'll tell you off the record. We can work up
Okay.
a contract. I'll take the
Okay.
10%. We'll figure it out.
Perfect. That works for me. I'm intrigued. That sounds good.
It's going to be studio design. Like, it's so
Yeah.
obvious.
I would love that. Huh.
Told you. We can figure out the company I swear exists that everybody tells me doesn't exist for all of the UK potters, which is the quintessential shed in the yard. You know, whoever's making the sheds. We either partner with, because we're not starting from scratch, because we're smart boss women, and have American pottery sheds that are then, then you can get the varying designs by Limyansky pottery.
I'm in. I like that. That scratches another itch in my brain. I'm like, I could organize someone else's place. Yes.
Anyways, it's on the record now, people. So, like, patent pending.
Okay.
Don't be jumping on this idea. And also, best of luck if you do, because if you have not seen Hope's rib walls, like, I'm sorry,
I love that thing.
No one's catching up. That's ridiculous. How much time is spent? This is a weird phrases I never thought I would say in my life. Waxing your ribs? Well, we're going to leave you hanging on that absolutely delightful question about waxing ribs, which I promise will make total sense in context, and you'll hear Hope's answer and potentially how she sways my opinion in part 2. Trust me, it's not as weird as it sounds, or maybe it is. Either way, it's worth coming back for. But before we get to Hope's tool care philosophy, I hope this first part of our conversation has given you permission to question whether the goals you've been chasing are actually yours. Maybe they were to begin with, maybe they still are, or maybe they've changed. Any of those options are totally okay, as is probably options I haven't even thought of. The point is, your dream making and creative life does not have to look like anyone else's. And let me tell you, from experience, once that really sinks in, it can be one of the most freeing shifts you can make, not only for your small business or side hustle, but also for your life. If you've been beating yourself up for not being full-time yet, it's okay to realize you might not actually want to be full-time. If you've been trying to build a massive social media following because that seems like what you're supposed to be doing, it's okay to step back and ask if the platform you've been trying to grow on is actually serving your goals. If you've been feeling like you should just pick one thing and fully commit, it's okay to realize that having multiple creative outlets might actually be what keeps you energized and inspired. Hope's path didn't come from following some prescribed formula. It came from getting honest about what she actually wanted her days to look like, and then changing her goals when she realized what really works best for her. Uniquely. There's no one right way to make this work. And honestly, the version of success that works for you right now might look completely different 2 years from now, or 10 years from now. I didn't fail at my photography business. On the contrary, we were really pretty friggin' successful. Like, multiple six-figure annual revenue kind of successful. All of that was happening back in 2021 when I decided it wasn't what I wanted anymore. Now that sounds crazy, but that's not failure, that's just growth. We're allowed to change our minds about what we want our creative businesses and in turn, our lives to look like as we learn more about ourselves and what actually brings us fulfillment. Coming up in part 2 of this conversation, Hope and I go even deeper into brand partnerships, the comparison trap, and what it actually means to build multiple businesses that all work together. So don't forget to hit follow or subscribe or a little plus button, whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening or watching on, so that you don't miss out on the second half. As always, if you're working through these big, hard, difficult questions, how many different adjectives can I use that mean hard? Anyway, if you're trying to figure this all out on your own, what you want your own unique creative business or side hustle to look like, what shifts you might be starting to think about, but they feel really scary, even if you know that they're right for you, well, there's a whole group of makers having these exact conversations inside of the community right now. Some are juggling multiple income streams like Hope, some are working towards going full-time, and others have decided that actually keeping their creative practice as a beloved side quest is exactly what they want. If you want to join makers who understand the nuance of building a creative business that actually fits your life, then come visit makersplaybook.com/community to learn more. And one more time, since your hands are probably covered in something a little bit messy, it's makersplaybook.com/community. Until next time, my friends, go get back to making your dreams a reality, because together, we've got this. Audio post-production of this podcast is made possible by help from Christy Kotzfan, with promotional material assistance from Queenie Maliki. The Maker's Playbook podcast is recorded on the original homelands of the Potawatomi, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee people, where the people of Wisconsin's sovereign Anishinaabe, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Oneida, and Mohican nations remain present.